morning, everybody. Welcome to Wise Tech for Wise Money, the podcast where we speak with founders, operators, and professionals who are actively building businesses and shaping their markets through real execution. I'm Gary Wayne, founder of A1 Solutions. We help founders and leadership teams grow intelligently through better strategy, smarter systems, and practical AI-driven automation. Today's episode is titled The Hidden Gatekeepers of Property Markets, Inspection, Insurance, and Why Most Deals Fail Before They Start. I'm joined today by Glenn Stevens, President of Glenn Stevens and Associates, based in Florida. Glenn brings over 40 years of experience across construction, inspections, and industry education. He's a certified residential contractor, roofing contractor, and a certified master inspector. This conversation is not just about property. This is about the infrastructure behind property, compliance, insurance, and risk. Morning, Glenn. How are you? It's good to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Gary.
Before we start, maybe I'll dive into the business model. Let's start with your journey. How did you get to where you are today? What made you get into construction? And specifically inspections, etc.
It's funny. The whole process has been stepping stones, right? My dad was a contractor here in Florida, and while I was in high school, it helped him out a lot since 1980. But I also swore at that time I wasn't going to be a contractor because I saw how hard he worked and how much he struggled at the time. And so I went off into the Air Force. And so when I got out, really didn't have a marketable trade other than pushing cargo at the airports. So I started drafting and design, and it kind of built from there. To where by 2003, I decided I want to get my contractor's license, step back out in the trades, and I went and did it. Got my license in '04, the same weekend of Hurricane Charlie hitting Punta Gorda here in Florida. And so it just kind of took off from there. And I've always been teaching and educating professionals, so that kind of went hand in hand when the recession hit here in Florida pretty hard. Actually, when it started in '06, I started teaching for a national school, and they were having me travel the country teaching exam prep, project management, estimating for both civil and commercial construction projects. So I was doing a lot of teaching during that time frame, but because I was traveling the country, I needed to do something a little bit more local and staying here closer to home. And for me, home inspection was my next route because I enjoyed the education process. So that's where I started in 2011 as a full-time home inspector, and I've been doing it ever since.
So your company was started in 2011?
Yeah.
And you cover construction, inspections, insurance work, and education. I remember on our first call, though, you specifically said you're heavy into education. Can you give me an overview of how you operate in these areas?
Sure. So with the home inspections, that's straight up for properties for resale, whether it's a home or commercial. So I get hired in by the client to come in and look at the safety items, the structural elements of those buildings. From there, we step into Florida is one of those unique environments where, as an inspector, we're expected to perform insurance inspections. One is called a 4-point inspection, where the inspector looks at the four main systems of a home: air conditioning, roof, electrical, and plumbing, and to ensure that none of those items are are a hazard that would cause a claim to the insurance carrier. The other is because Florida is the hurricane mitigation inspections. So again, it's one of those items that, and this is actually a state regulated form and inspection that inspectors are quite frankly expected to do. So with those from the inspection standpoint, they're pretty technically involved, and you always need someone to properly teach the inspectors on how to do all of those, and that's the other role that I do. I'm a state certified, state licensed education provider for home inspectors, contractors, building officials, and real estate professionals.
What, so what about roof inspections and insurance inspections?
Yeah, so being a certified roofing contractor, I've got a unique ability to step in and to look at roofs, inspect those roofs from the perspective of life expectancy, what it takes to correct a roof that was improperly repaired, etc. And the benefit there is that I don't have a construction company to support, so I can be 100% unbiased, right? I can look at that property. I don't have a vested interest. I'm not trying to sell a roof to anybody, so I'm going to look at it as an independent, and that's kind of where that goes and comes into play. A lot of times, a home has been inspected by a previous inspector, and that inspector called out for a licensed roofer to come out and evaluate the roof, and that's kind of where I step in.
What
And
drives the majority of your revenue then nowadays? What part of the work is your day to day and your key service?
day to day, it's pretty much evenly split. The residential property inspections probably those are my highest revenue income points. The insurance inspections not so much. Those although you know I do charge a bit of a premium just because of my experience and my knowledge in the industry.
What about education? How often do you educate or you hold classes or courses?
This year, because we had a new insurance form that came out, I've been teaching every month. Um, and so those are 6 hour courses, and that's you know covering how to properly fill out the form and go from there. But generally speaking, I'm teaching anywhere between once a quarter to could be multiple times a quarter.
So are these services standalone or are they part of the overall ecosystem?
There, I again being independent, so for the most part, these are continuing education hours that the inspectors are required to get every 2 years, and so as part of the regulatory component of it. So yeah, I'm teaching those. We've got a renewal coming up in July for home inspectors, so they're required to have 14 hours of continuing education hours uh, by the end of July. So
Excellent. So how do you decide what to charge when you're doing inspections? Is it per inspection or?
yeah, it's per inspection. My fees, my fees are based upon square footage, so total square footage of a home, because it may have multiple floors. It still has a garage. It still may have a patio or covered deck. Excuse me, and from there I charge by the square foot. So it's the total square footage of the home and or the commercial property, and so that's how I've set my rates. I've got a bare minimum fee that I'll charge per property, and then it's basically my rates are based upon that. So how do I come up with that pricing? Well, I'm looking at at my experience predominantly, uh, my years in the industry, whether it be the construction side or the inspection side, uh, plus the education coming back in. So my rates are really much based upon what I have felt I'm worth to do those inspections.
That's fair. You mentioned Florida is effectively governed by the insurance industry. Can you expand on that a little bit more?
Well, yeah. So with the insurance industry here in Florida, um, they pretty they're the ones who are pretty active in pushing the building codes because they don't want claims, right? So as an inspector here in Florida, uh, they're they control everything that we basically do because they're looking to protect their investments in the properties, right? We jokingly say that you know if it wasn't for insurance, our rates would be a lot smaller. But the storms and everything that we have here pretty much controls that, right? So and a good hurricane comes through, and and now suddenly, and we had this with Hurricane Ian. Hurricane Ian came through, and one of the largest providers in the state uh, couldn't cover everything, and they wound up going bankrupt and shutting their doors, which puts a strain on the entire market. Florida, as a result of, of insurance companies not surviving, has created a state-backed insurance company. It's considered the insurance of last resort. So, they step in when other providers uh, are unwilling to cover a certain property, or a provider decides it's going to crash.
So the government, there's a state-backed insurance scheme that covers buildings and risk when individual insurance companies don't want that risk.
Correct, correct, and that's predominantly with the residential market.
Has that changed much over the last 3 or 5 years? Has it got more common, or
Um, we they've pretty much been in control of the market. The insurance company's been kind of control of the market realistically since the 80s. Is it more prevalent? You know what? The insurance companies they're the ones that are kind of pushing a lot of the changes that are happening in the market. So, and the state's trying to step in with that. There's been a number of legislative initiatives to try to reel some of the insurance companies back because they were going a little wild. They were taking essentially a brand new shingle roof and aging it out at 10 years. And when the roof clearly had another 10, 15 years of life left on it. So the insurance, and so the state legislation about 3 years ago really threw out the lasso to bring them back in.
so the inspections, etc., on that basis of that must be really impacting deal viability and property pricing.
It does. It does. Some properties you go in and inspect, and because of the conditions of the home, um, I know my report would hurt that client more than help them. So I let them know what those items they need to correct in order to obtain insurance. For a property for resale, I step in and I do the inspection. And because of the findings of that home at that time, the insurance company has a tendency to say, we can't cover this property. So now it forces the buyer to go into different markets or different uh, research capabilities in order to find an insurance coverage.
Obviously, you get a lot of hurricanes, and that's why there's a problem with insurers, etc. I mean, how are the properties built in a way to sustain damage as much as they can, and can you actually build them to sustain
Yeah,
that
you can.
damage?
You actually can. And the way the building codes are set up here in Florida, um, depending on where you're at in the state, will really dictate uh, how strong the home or the property needs to be built. Okay, so prime example is uh, in areas that are expected to receive 140 miles an hour or greater during a I believe it's an 8 second or a 3 second burst. Um, with those speeds, uh, you you have to build to a much higher standard. Requires more impact windows or storm shutters, and all of which have to be tested to certain standards to meet the criteria. As you get further north in the state, you're seeing less and less concrete block homes, uh, and you're seeing more wood frame homes. So so that's basically how we build and strengthen the homes, really based upon those wind criterias.
I remember a few years ago. I mean, I know Naples quite well, and I remember a few years ago there was a really bad hurricane, and Naples was sort of underwater almost.
Yeah.
Is that an area that obviously has to have much stronger type building regs?
Well, it does. Down in the Naples, Collier County area, they have wind speed requirement of 170 miles an hour or greater. And then you start getting down into Monroe County, where the Keys are, uh, you're into the 180 mile an hour
Oh,
zones.
it's quite scary. We don't have
Yes, it
anything like
is.
that. We don't have, yeah.
2 years ago, 2 years ago, Hurricane Milton landed here in Sarasota. And that was the very first hurricane to directly hit this county in all of recorded history. So, and Milton came over, and my house is dead center of that eye wall. Just my neighborhood was anyway, and it's quite surreal watching the wind come in.
So scary. I remember going to a little island just off of Sarasota called Palm Island.
Palm Island, that's more down into Lee County,
Right.
um, in the Fort Myers area. So yeah,
I'm sure that would have been blown away.
yeah.
I suppose it
It's,
was wooden cottages.
Siesta Key, our barrier islands, they got hit twice. One with Helene a few weeks earlier, and then Milton. And in both cases, we had 4 feet of water covering the entire islands.
Oh, terrible. Tell me about the insurance form you're involved in. Obviously, you developed a new insurance inspection form. Why was it needed, and what was broken in the previous system that it had to change?
Well, so the newest form that just came out is the Uniform Mitigation Form. Is the Office of Insurance Regulation 1802 form. Uh, that that went through a study, a statewide study on building construction and insurance backing, and so they came up with a model, if you will, on what they wanted to list into the new form, and I was part of those public conversations, the public forum portions of the conversation, and myself and the association. I'm the president of this year, Florida Association of Building Inspectors, FABI. we were heavily involved in the conversations with that new form, and some of our suggestions were adopted, which was great. Some of the suggestions, not so much. The old form, the original form was, or the form that we've been using for the longest, was the 2012 form, and now we've got the 26 form. And that, because it's an insurance form, it's because it's being designed by individuals who don't necessarily deal with the inspections on a daily basis like we do. It was flawed in 2012, and it's flawed here in 26. There's some questionable changes that they made, and some changes that they should have made that they didn't. So it's still very confusing if the inspectors aren't taking the proper training, and how to fill that form out. There's a lot of new requirements in that, so it's trying to make sure that the homes that we are inspecting are meeting the standards that minimize the insurance company's risk.
So basically, that the new form tightens up everything and obviously gives people more protection. Yeah,
In a way, it's also very confusing in some of the questions that's on the form, just because of some of the verbiage that they've used.
But does it limit poor inspections, or does it help limit poor inspections?
With the downside is with the inspection forms, and because we as the home inspectors are expected to fill those out, there are a lot of inspectors who we call the Dollar General type of inspector.
Right.
They're poor quality, poor information, and very cheap. And unfortunately, it's those cheap inspections that hurt the market, and hurt the information across the board. We're always going to have those guys. There's always going to be those bottom basement guys. But as an inspector, getting the training necessary and making sure that you're filling out the forms correctly is really the best for not only the industry but for the homeowners.
So who are the primary clients for your training? And
Inspectors.
how do you charge for the training?
So I charge for the training based upon room availability, because I don't have a site that I teach at. So how many students do I need in order to break even, and how many students do I need to start making a profit, right? So really it's based upon that information. As a general rule, I charge anywhere between $170 to $200 per person, depending on the course and the length of the time in that course. I understand that for every hour of education entails 40 hours worth of computer time and development.
Yeah, no, I can see that. I do a lot of plans for people and they take hours. So, putting together education content was obviously even more in detail. So, it's very time consuming. Is that a big part of your business?
Yeah, I spend a lot of time behind the computer, because if I'm not out doing inspections or teaching, I'm not drawing money in, but I still have to develop courses. I still have to do my education and do research for the courses that I'm developing.
And then
So
you're not getting paid for that research time. So,
exactly.
moving on a bit to developers. From a developer's perspective, what's harder today and changed to make it harder than it was 10 years ago? How much do insurance and compliance now shape their decisions and opportunities?
From that side of the market, it's kind of hard to say. I know when I first started off, I was doing a lot of of insurance inspections, and that was great. I was considerably younger at the time, um, and but that's a production type of income. So you have to do a lot of inspections in order to make a reasonable living, and that puts a lot of wear and tear on the body. For those stepping into it for the inspections side of it, um, that's really trying to find your niche, in developing what you can do and what you can't do. Um, I'm not a small guy, and I still have to get up into attics. Um, I've still got to get into those small crawl spaces sometimes. I still have to get up and walk those roofs, whether it be a shingle roof or a tile roof or a metal roof for that matter. Uh, there there are roofs, and there's things that we still have to do. So you have to look at what you're capable of doing physically, and b, how does that fit your market? How does it fit where you're at in the industry?
Yeah, no, I agree. Just talking about property development in Florida, I speak to quite a lot of people, and the hot states for them seem to be Arizona and Nevada because apparently land is quite cheap. There's a lot of state backing. How is that in Florida? Is it similar or a little bit more difficult?
Well, it's kind of hard to develop in Florida because of the natural habitats that we have and that are protected. But we're still growing. Sarasota, Manatee counties are considered some of the fastest growing areas in the country. So we've got a lot of inventory. We've got a lot of existing inventory, and we've got a lot of new construction inventory. So you know, we've been in a major building boom up until last year. Things are starting to slow down quite a bit. We're not having a lot of movement in properties right now in some aspects, but yeah, we're still growing.
Yeah, you had a lot of younger people. When I look at the stats, a few years ago, the average age group in Florida was about 55 plus. But from what I understand now, the average age has really dropped considerably.
Depending on your areas, yeah. Um, Here, again, Florida, we joke a lot about stuff. Um, you know, at one point, Venice, which is a small little town here in Sarasota County, was considered the retirement capital of the world. And then you go down to Punta Gorda, and that's where the people who are waiting to die moved from Venice down to Punta Gorda. So you got these jokes going around, of aging out, and right now we've got a large retirement community called the Villages up in Central Florida, and so there's a huge amount of retirees there. Sarasota still has a lot of retirees. Sarasota and Manatee counties still have a lot of retirees. It's really a huge community for that. Where the younger communities are moving more towards are some of those larger cities, Tampa, Miami, Orlando. They're the ones that are really getting a lot of the youth, but not so much here.
Sure. Moving back to your business and visibility, how do clients currently find you? Is
Word of
your
mouth.
growth primary referral based or
Yeah,
system driven?
yeah. No, I am a referral based company. I get a lot of referrals, ironically enough, from fellow inspectors. Uh, so if they're needing a specialty item that needs to be inspected, that's usually when they call me up and say, "Glenn, can you handle this?" And pretty much the same for the
You're the
realty
go-to
business.
guru.
Yeah, in many respects, yes.
Do you find you're losing opportunities today, or you have any operational bottlenecks? How is things generally building, growing, or plateauing?
You know, as far as as far as how things are growing, specifically for me and my company, I'm in a bit of a downshift at the moment, predominantly because of a lot of other things that I've been working on outside of the company. I'm developing my own home inspection software. I'm developing courses. President of the association. You know, so a lot of my time, if I'm not out in the field, I'm doing those other items, um, which is good and bad.
Sure.
Um,
Do,
you
do
know,
you use a lot of technology?
I do. I've got my work area. I've got 3 monitors, and my whole desk area is covered
That's
with that.
that's more than traders have.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've got, and they're not small monitors either. My main monitor is a 35-inch monitor, I believe, and then I've got two 20-inch plus on either side of that. One's in a landscape mode and one's in a portrait mode. So, I've got my whole design system set up here. So it works.
Tell me about Florida market. I mean, how do you see it over the next 3 to 5 years?
It's going to really depend on how things work out. I hate stepping down this road, but unfortunately, it's the reality that we're living in right now. Um, Depending on how the politics and policies play out over these next couple of years, interest rates right now are big. Were a big driving factor. Right now, um, just because of certain national directions that are being instituted, and in our state is we have leadership that is sympathetic to that national mentality, and so we've had a lot of we have not had the number of international clients and who have been the big driving force for
I think geopolitical situations obviously don't allow for as much travel as we were looking to do. I saw even today in the UK, because of the energy problem, because of Iran, loads of flights are being cancelled, flights are doubling. When people went to UAE and Dubai and the war initially started, flights were being quadrupled and hotels visits were being quadrupled. And I think with that uncertainty, obviously limits people wanting to travel too far.
correct. So there's a lot of staycations going on, local one-day trips, which is a lot of things that my wife and I are considering doing this summer. Um, there's some limitations there, uh, and it's driving the market. It's driving the housing market. We, we have we have seasonal residents. We have people that come down who live here in Florida only during the winter months, and we've not had as many of those types of clients, because a lot of times when they come down and they're visiting during those months, um, they're looking at properties. They're looking to buy to purchase or invest into a property down here, whether it be a seasonal home that they're looking for, or whether they're looking at a rental market or permanent residence for that matter. And we've just not had a lot of that going on this past season.
Sure. What about insurance? Does that stabilise in the next few years, or do you think that's going to become more restrictive? Well, it just really depends on the weather.
You Weather is going to be the driving factor there. It's going to be the huge driving factor. Fortunately, last year we didn't have any storms, so that kind of gives a bit of a cushion. Um, if we wind up being storm free this year, that'll make things a little even better. But one good storm can really disrupt the market real quick. So, um, you know, it's good. It's a good storm is good for the construction market and some of the inspection side of it. But once everything's all done, it's kind of hard pressed. I've got a number of friends who are in the roofing community. They're struggling. They're struggling right now because major storm came through and everybody got new roofs. So so now they're kind of looking at those elements, and that's kind of the way the market rolls.
Sure. Before we wrap up, I'd like to ask a couple of questions. I mean, if you could change one structural issue in your industry overnight, what would it be?
Industry wide,
Yeah.
consistent training.
Okay.
Everybody.
And advice you'd give to new inspectors and developers entering the market?
So here's the advice that I give new inspectors, especially those that are looking in my particular area or inspectors that I teach, or new inspectors that I'm teaching. Know your market, know your worth, and don't overthink the properties. A lot of guys walk in and they want to mark and nitpick every little element that's wrong on a home, and some are just not necessary. There's whether it be lived in or whatever. Some things are just cosmetic, and you don't want to deal with those cosmetic items. But as far as the main new advice, pay attention. Don't undercharge yourself, and take as much training as you possibly can.
Right, Glenn. Well, I really appreciate you being on this podcast. I think it was very good today. I mean, we have a lot of podcasts, but today was about real life.
Yeah.
Conversation that highlights what's going on really behind what everybody sees.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you very much for that. For anyone listening obviously and wanting to get in touch with you, where can they find you?
So they can find me on G Stevens and Associates, gstevensassociates.com. G for Glenn, Stevens with a PH, Associates all spelled out.com. That's the fastest and easiest way to get hold of me.
Are you on LinkedIn? Do you use that much?
I do. I do have LinkedIn. I don't answer so much on the LinkedIn, but I do have LinkedIn and also have G Stevens Associates on Facebook.
Fantastic, Glenn. Well, I want to thank you for being my guest. I'm Gary Wayne. This has been Wise Tech for Wise Money. We'll be along with a couple of more sessions in the next few days. In the meantime, if you want to get hold of me, I'm on my webpage, I'm on A1 solutionsinternational.com, or I'm on LinkedIn under Gary Wayne, and also A1 Solutions. Glenn, once again, thanks for joining me. We'll talk in a minute. Listeners, thank you for listening in. Thank you for watching us.
Thank you.